Absolutely. Thanks, Brenda.
Sure.
And hello, everybody. Smaller group than we normally have, but that's okay. You guys are going to get all the good stuff. So make sure you share it with the people who skipped out on this one. So my name's Matt. This is my first official webinar as an official member of the IU8 team. I just came from being a teacher at Williamsburg. I see some of my Williamsburg colleagues here. So yeah, I just left the classroom just a couple of weeks ago, so this is all very brand new to me. But this whole idea of sharing tools and sharing AI stuff is not new to me at all. So this has kind of been my second job for the last like 2 or 3 years. Um, Now it gets to be half of my main job, which is nice, which is really nice. So I'm really excited about the one today, and we have a lot of stuff to cover. So I'm going to try to, and I apologize in advance if I talk really fast, but I'm going to try to get through everything as much as I can and take as many of your questions as possible. Um, so in the chat, there's a PDF version of this, if the link to this does not work. Also in the chat, there's a link to this app that I'm using that I'm sharing with you. It's called Gamma. Gamma is really, really good at creating slide decks, creating web pages or landing pages, and doing different things. Very useful for a teacher. And it is super, super fast. And they have a lot of really cool themes and stuff set up. So if you're someone who likes to use slides a lot, these will build slide decks for you in like minutes, and then you can go back and edit them, which is what I like. A lot of tools now, they build the slide decks for you, but then they don't let you go back and edit them. So this one lets you go back, edit everything. You can change everything the way you need to and customize everything to your liking. But AI could do a lot of the heavy lifting. So this was all created with AI. I put in an outline, everything that I wanted to cover, and I had everything lined up exactly the way I wanted, and it built it and made it look really, really pretty for me. So that's a really cool app. The link there is a sign up. If you sign up with that, it gives me 200 extra credits and it gives you 200 extra credits, which was really nice. Um, how it works is like credits build this thing. So to build a presentation, it's 40 credits. So you start with like a lot, but it's always nice to share and get more. So just in case you want to just keep creating more stuff. So that's a separate side note, just to let you know what this tool is. Um, what I'm going to do with you now is I'm going to share the link to this so you can view it through Gamma if you want, but it's also available through the PDF as well. Alrighty, so today we're going to be focusing on Gemini and CoPilot. Okay, so Gemini and Copilot are basic versions of LLMs. And so a lot of people are really familiar with ChatGPT. That's like one of the most popular AI tools out there is ChatGPT. This is Google and Microsoft's version of ChatGPT. That's all these are. Okay, so back to basics. In case you don't know, and you're brand new to this whole thing for AI, this is a basic rundown of what AI is. It uses those large language models, as Brenda helped us out there, to look for patterns and kind of predict what word comes next. And that sounds crazy when we see that it creates like full, images, full text, full all that stuff. It seems crazy that all it's doing is predicting the next word, but that's exactly what it's doing. So one of the things that we need to be cognizant of, we need to learn how to speak to AI. We're going to learn a lot about that today. That's part of our lesson today. We also need to learn, and it says this on the bottom of every single AI program, that you need to check. AI can make mistakes, so you need to check and verify everything that is coming from AI. And one of the big things that I always see and hear from teachers is like, it didn't do what I wanted the first time, so I think it's stupid and I never want to use it again. And so I always say to people that the key with AI is to keep the conversation going. Pretend it is a coworker, a colleague, an intern. Um, you want to keep the conversation going, let it know what it's doing well, let it know what it's doing wrong, and then it'll keep building and get you exactly what you need. Okay. So, first one we're going to talk about is Microsoft Copilot. And give me 1 second here. I'm going to sneak that out of there because I want to pull this up in another window. But Microsoft Copilot is simply just Microsoft's version of ChatGPT. And what's really funny and weird and hard for people to grasp, ChatGPT is actually what powers Microsoft Copilot. So like they're a partner with Copilot. So Copilot uses ChatGPT to like run. So it's always confusing to people like, why would I use Copilot if I just use ChatGPT? Well, the reason that people do that is because Copilot is embedded literally into everything in the Microsoft workspace. So if your school is a Microsoft school and everything is Microsoft, then Copilot is really, really nice because it literally just embeds in everything that you're doing. You'll see a little toolbar pop up. And if I slide this over, I can show you what this looks like here. So this is just using Bing, the Microsoft, browser. But you'll see up in the corner here, this is Copilot. So like literally you click on that and it'll pop in Copilot and you can have a chat while you're on a web page. You can ask it questions about the web page, or you could have a completely separate chat about nothing to do with the web page is doing. So I could be like, what are the main goals for teachers with AI in 2025. And so it's going to go do its thing as an AI and just answer my question. And then it's going to probably want to suggest a million ways and a million things it can do afterwards. Would you like me to create a visual roadmap infographic or a detailed action plan? So you'll see that AI always wants to do more for you and wants to do the next step for you. So do that at your own discretion. But this is how Copilot works. It's exactly the same way as any other AI program that we've used. It just can be embedded in everything. And when you open up Excel, when you open up Docs and your Outlook and Teams, Copilot is like literally just one of these and it's right there. Okay, so that's kind of why I wanted to show you that. All right, so we'll sneak that over here for now. We'll open this back up. So big things that teachers use Copilot for, and you'll see this over and over again. But one of the big things we use AI for is differentiation. I think most teachers are aware that right now we have to differentiate massive amounts of grade levels within our own grade levels. So it's very, very difficult to do that on our own, would take very, very long time. AI is extremely good at helping us do that pretty quickly. So if you have a text or an article or something that you want to share with your class, but you know that such and such student isn't going to be able to access that text because of the vocabulary, because of the complexity and whatnot, you can literally plug in the article to Copilot and it will rewrite it to be accessible for whatever grade level you want it to be. I've done this with a lot of texts and articles that I've used for my science class. For kids, I taught sixth grade, so I had kids that were on a kindergarten reading level. So I'd have to level the text down to a kindergarten reading level while keeping the main idea and the main points of the lesson that I'm trying to get across. So AI is really, really good at that kind of context and information. So those are some of the big use cases there. Obviously, I think by now all the teachers are pretty aware of like creating text, creating quizzes, generating practice questions, like all of that. I'm pretty sure right now, you are inundated every day with tools that are like, we can save you time, we can save you time. So this is just another version of that. But again, what's nice about Copilot is it works if your school is a Microsoft school. Okay. So next, this is the big one. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on Gemini because I think, if I'm not mistaken, more of our schools are Gemini or Google schools than Microsoft schools. So Gemini for education is, again, Google's version of their AI. Okay. So this happened in, what was it, June. So this happened in June where Google made this whole Gemini for education free for schools. And it like broke the internet in the AI and education world because they announced this at a big conference. And it kind of like people were like, what do you mean this is free now? So essentially what they did was they gave you their higher level version of Gemini with its advanced reasoning and thinking. It let you weave Gemini into literally every part of your business or in part of your class, including Google Classroom. And it gave you this protection. This was a big one that a lot of schools were nervous about letting teachers and students use AI, was when you talk to an AI, that goes into its public training data. And this will come up again later, but a friend of mine told me very early on, if you don't want it on the internet, don't put it into a chatbot. So that was kind of the thing, is if you don't want it on the internet, don't put it into a chatbot. Okay. Um, but with these tools, what they essentially did was, when your school signs up for these programs, all of your chats and all of the data and all the things you upload stay within your school's server. So it became a really useful tool for schools, because now you don't have to like anonymize data. You don't have to do any of this stuff, because it works within your ecosystem and your server. So teachers and especially admin were really, really happy about this announcement, that you could just kind of use your data and it stays within and it never goes out to the actual large training of the model itself. So it's a lot safer. You have a lot more privacy when you're chatting with these through Gemini for Education. Okay. So I've introduced you to these two tools. I would like you to pop into the chat and type in, this is simple. It's either a one or a two. So type in a one if you have used AI for something this week, and type in a two if you have not used AI for anything this week as a teacher. Cool. There we go. There we go. So lots of ones from the people that I see. Um, I will, and that's exactly what I was expecting, was lots of ones. Something that I want to make you aware of, if you're not already aware of, if I pose this question at a group of students, it would be the same results. It would be the same result. The students would all answer and say, yes, I've done something with AI this week. So that we always have to keep in the back of our mind, that even though our schools may have a policy where the students can't use it, they are finding ways to use it. Okay. And if you are doubting the creativity of children, I highly suggest that you look up what is happening in Australia right now. Australia just made a social media ban for kids that are under the age of 16. And so there's a whole like thing that they did to ban kids on social media under 16. Kids have actually, what they've started doing is using makeup, and using makeup to make themselves look older to get bypass the systems. So it's like kids are getting extremely creative in getting around roadblocks. So that's just something I wanted to, have you all keep in mind here. So as we said, Gemini works within all the tools that we have. Okay. So what I wanted to do, I'm going to pop in another one here just to show you what this looks like. Now I'm going to give you a little peek behind the curtains here. This is like the Wizard of Oz here, peek behind the curtains. This is a program that it deserves its whole training all to itself. But the only reason I wanted to show you this is because of this little thing up here. So when you have the certain versions of the Gemini, this is what it looks like when you open this up in your workspace. So it'll have a little star up here, and when you click on it, very similar to CoPilot, it will just pop out a little chat box, and you can go in here and start going through and having a conversation. And you could share the current tab, and you could ask questions about the current tab you're on. You can upload other tabs, or you can upload files or whatever, but you can do that all right here in your browser. You don't have to open up a separate window to be able to do that. Okay. So here's a sneak preview of Notebook LM, by the way, which also is free in Gemini for Education. So if you go down, you'll see Notebook LM it looks like this. Again, this deserves its own training This is low key. It doesn't get talked about a lot, but it's probably one of the best tools out there. Um, but it doesn't get as much hype as all the other ones because it's kind of boring compared to the rest of the AI tools because can't make crazy images and stuff with it, so it doesn't get as much hype. But again, so I just wanted to show you what it looks like. Up in the corner there, you see the little Gemini star, very similar to Copilot. And that is only available on some Gemini plans. So you just have to check with your IT, whoever purchases that, and see what level you have. Okay, so as you can see here at the IU, we do not have that level of plan. So I don't have that star up in the corner. So I'm not able to access Gemini through here. Um, so two things. I'm gonna switch tabs here and take a look. Um, so this was, oh, I was trying to figure out how to set up this webcam. That's what this chat was about. But this is what Gemini this is what Gemini looks like when you go in and you sign up through your school. Again, it'll have your school up there. Um, when I was at Williamsburg, it'd have your Williamsburg logo, whatever you got up there. And that's how you know that that's your workspace account for your work. And that's how you know that your chats are safe and your data is private and all that stuff. So this is what Gemini looks like. As you all, if you've messed around with ChatGPT, looks almost exactly the same. Just kind of exactly the same. They're all pretty much copying off of each other at this point. But that makes it easier for people when they, jump in between things. Gemini is really great, especially if your school has it. You essentially get the pro version for free. So the one I showed you was on my personal account. I pay $20 a month for that, and I pay $20 a month for ChatGPT. So like that's $40 a month. That's a lot. But if you could do it through your school or your work, then that's the way to go. Okay. The other thing I wanted to share with you about Gemini. Okay. I know. I'm boring, Tambria. I know. So the other thing I wanted to share with you here is that my share thing gets out of the way here. Move out of the way. There we go. Thank you. Google Classroom. So a lot of our teachers and everybody have, Google Classroom. So within Google Classroom, this was one of the highlights that Gemini for Education that kind of blew people away. This also made the people at Magic School very nervous because as you can see on this screen, this looks very similar to how Magic School is set up with tabs and you just click on the tool and do the thing, right? So they built these tools. So Google built these tools within Google Classroom. So inside of your Google Classroom, if you use Google Classroom, or surprise, as I found out, even if you don't use Google Classroom, you have access to it. You can use these tools within your Google Classroom and then share the things it's created through your Canvas or whatever you use for your school. All right. But if you're using Google Classroom, it becomes even easier. All right. So as you can see, there's some really general things that they've come up with on here for, buttons. And these work very, very similarly to exactly how something on Magic School would work. Okay. So you could put in grade 6, put 3 questions, and we'll say ratios and proportions. Think that's what my 6th graders are learning right now? No. What are they learning right now? Greatest common factor and least common multiple. They're probably glad I'm not there teaching it. That's pretty boring when I teach this one. So it'll suggest learning objectives for you, and you like those or not. You can adjust those. As you see, I can type in here, I can delete them, whatever. We can pick the question types. Let's do those two, and then it'll generate those questions for me. All right. And so I got 3 questions. I can export these right to a doc or right to a Google form, which is really nice. I can take them right from here and add them to a class if I have my classes set up. Or if you're using something else, you could just literally copy and paste the text that's up here and copy and paste that to somewhere else. Okay. And then just like Magic School, you have, do you want to follow up with it? Do you want to go through and do something else with it? So on and so forth. Okay. So that's how that works within Google Classroom. And you have all this. Just a quick note, if you use this within here, anything that has this little diamond, what that means is it's going to pop open Google Gemini. It's not going to work within Google Classroom. It's going to pop open a separate window. So if I wanted to do brainstorm real world examples, it's literally going to pop open Google Gemini and then put in the prompt automatically and then go through and do the whole thinking thing and do whatever you click the button for it to do. Okay. So that's how that works. All right. Any questions about that? I know I'm talking really fast and I know I've covered a lot. Is there any questions about any of this stuff? Yes, Abigail, thank you for sharing that. That was also brand new news as of like, I think it was last week or the week before, ChatGPT for education. But it's really weird. It was not as hyped as I thought it would be. Um, I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. I hear a lot less people talking about it than I thought I would. So, but yes, that's very true. And again, everything I'm telling you on here, like all the stuff that ChatGPT is doing for their education level program is exactly the same thing that Google's doing, is exactly the same thing that Microsoft's doing. I don't know if you've noticed the trend, but all these companies are trying to jump in on education. And if you can have a little bit of foresight to wonder why they would all want to jump in on education, I don't think it's hard for us to see the writing on the wall, what they're hoping for. You know, a friend of mine once said to me, Google's goal is to create users for life. So if you can introduce teachers to this tool and the teachers introduce this tool to their students, you have users for life. You have the teachers using it and you have the students using it. You have colleges who are using it. So every step of the way, that's their whole goal is to build users, right? So that's why they're, try it free for 2 years, do it free for this. And then you're going to realize how awesome it is. And then you're going to want to convince your school to buy it. As we all know, everything is always based in money. So, all right, back to this. So, one of the things that sets apart Gemini from a lot of the other ones is now you can actually upload videos into Gemini and have it analyze those videos. You can have it do stuff with the videos. Um, you could upload images and files into all the AI programs, but Google's the first one where you could like legitimately just upload videos, which I think is pretty cool. Um, so that's their thing that stands out for Google is you can do all this crazy stuff. They call this multimodal. So you can do images, videos, and text, and it does it all within the chat. You don't have to like, here's our video thing over here. Here's our image thing over here. It just does it all right there within the chat. So that's one of the things that Google really has going for it right now. All right, now this is the cool part. If there's ever a part that you should definitely pay attention to, this is the one. Okay. Also, this is a great time to use the Windows button, Shift and S, and take a little snip of this screen, and you can just save this screen right to your downloads folder. It'll save it as an image. Yeah, there's one. Brenda, she's looking at me quizzically. Did you not know that shortcut? It's my favorite shortcut ever.
I use a Mac, so that's not my shortcut. So I was looking at you like, what you
Oh,
talking about, Willis?
I'm still trying to learn what it is because I just got a Mac at home, so I'm still trying to figure out how the shortcuts translate. But yeah,
I think
Windows
for
Shift
Mac,
S.
it's
Oh,
Command Shift 4 for Mac. I think.
beautiful. There
I
it
think.
is.
Don't quote me.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I just tried it last night, so I think that sounds familiar. But yeah,
For me, it's like a
all that.
road. I do it so
Yeah,
automatically. I don't even know what I'm
yeah,
in.
exactly. So, this is the part right here. This is the part where I hope to talk to people a lot more about. Okay. So, all prompting is talking to the AI. So now I've showed you the tools of Copilot and Gemini. Now, what do you do with them? Okay. And, I apologize to, my Williamsburg colleagues because I'm pretty sure I've given them this talk ad nauseum already. But this is for everybody else. So, prompting is really like a lot of people underestimated the value of prompting. And very quickly and early on in AI, people realized how actually important prompting was. And the fact that the better you are at prompting, the better the results are that you're going to get from AI. So one of the simplest prompt frameworks that I've used since the beginning, since I learned about it, was the first one here called the role task framework or role task format framework. Okay. So simply put, what that means is role is you give it a role. So make the AI act as something. Some people will say act as a. You can also say you are a, and it'll just take on that persona. Um, then you give it its task to do. What do you actually want it to do? What do you want it to create? What do you want it to debate you on? What do you want it to push your thinking on? What do you want it to critique? Like whatever you want it to do, that's what you put as the task. Okay, so for teachers, this is probably like for me, my most used one was like, uh, give me 5 activities that get my kids out of their seat and moving around. And so that was like that was the big one I used all the time. Because I wanted to get kids out of their seats all the time, moving around because I like chaos. So I said, I just want people up and moving around. And then format is how do you want the AI to present the information to you? Do you want a bulleted list? Do you want it in a lesson plan format? Do you have a specific format that you want it to be? So I usually say, give me 5 ideas, just number them 1 to 5, and give me small summaries about why each one's a good idea. That's usually something like that is what I would put in there. Okay. You can go as big or as little as you want. So the thing with the role task framework is you put in as much information as you can. The more information you put in, the more context you give the AI, the better the results are going to be. I use this example when I explain it to people all the time. So AI is like this giant brain, okay? It's huge library of information. If you walked into a library and you said, I need a book about science, you can imagine what the look on the library's face is going to be. Okay, I have thousands of books on science, right? So with AI, it's like I have trillions of pieces of data that are about science. So then the librarian, is usually going to ask you to be a little more specific. And so this is where when you walk into the library and you say, I want a science book that focuses on 6th grade science on these standards in this state of Pennsylvania, and I want it to cover this topic of the I'm trying to think of one of my standards. Cells. Okay, what are the basics of cells? Okay, now the librarian's like, oh, that's all in this little section right here. So instead of looking at the entire library for information and trying to pull from it, it's now pulling from a really small piece of the library. So the more context you put in there, the better the result's going to be. Now, as we talk about context, you never want to include things like, PII. So kids' names, kids' information, even first names. I've always shied away from putting names of any sort into the system. I use initials, or if the kids have like numbers, you have like codes or whatever in your room, you could use those if you need to like organize information based on the kids in your room. Just use initials, just use codes. I would never put in that I taught it at Williamsburg. So I never put that in. I just said I taught in Pennsylvania. Or I think the most specific I ever got was I teach in central Pennsylvania, I think is as specific as I got. Obviously, central Pennsylvania is very different from, Pittsburgh or Philly. So it has a little more context and nuance built in there. The next one is one I just learned about myself. So this one, I really like it though. So this is like when you have a big task that you're trying to do, like, I don't know, writing a curriculum. That's a pretty big, daunting task for people. So this framework is called the parts framework, and it's you'll see a lot of similarities between the two, but again, just adding in these little details of nuance. And that's really, if you look up AI prompting frameworks, you'll get 1,000 of them. And what you'll see and notice is that all of them essentially point you in the same direction, just with a little bit of nuance and a little bit of flair here and there. Okay. So persona, who is the AI? What are they acting like? What's their job? What's the goal? This is a nice one. I sometimes put this in the task as well when I use the other one, but what are you trying to accomplish with this? Okay. So looking forward, like what is your end result? What is your goal you're hoping to get to? And then what perspective should it take? So you have the AI as representing a teacher. Now the role is like you're a sixth grade teacher specializing in blah, 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 blah. Okay. The tone. Okay. Tone is a huge thing with AI, right? Right now, we have AI that really wants to agree with you and says you're the greatest thing ever. You have an idea that is like, I want to take this apple and I think I'm going to invent, you know, um, nuclear energy with this apple. And AI is like, yeah, we could do that. Let's do that. That's a great idea. Let's work on that. And that's what it's going to do. You also have some AIs that I've been experimenting with. One is called Claude. Claude will literally be like, yeah, that's not the greatest idea. You should really think a little bit more deeply about that. And here's why. So the tone is a big deal with AI. How do you want it to sound to you? Do you want it to just be direct? That's what a lot of people really like the AI to just be direct, straightforward, and cut through the nonsense. Because boy, it'll keep talking. It's like me. It'll keep talking if you let it. All right. And then style. How should it be written? What should it look like? All that stuff. So this is more for if you have something that's a really big task. And if you're using and you have a really big task, you want to make sure that you switch and use the really big model. So I'm going to switch back to Gemini here real quick just to show you what I mean. So within Gemini, you'll have this option down here. If you click on this, you'll see two. You'll see a fast option and you'll see a thinking option. Okay. So within the fast option, this will do something, it'll do a task and it'll do it very, very quickly. So this is like if you needed to come up with 5 ideas about dinner, if you needed something quick, right? Now, if you are doing something that requires a little bit more thinking, a little bit more research, like you want to build something or you want to design something or, something of that sort, you're going to want to use the thinking. I'm still trying to figure out the balance between when do I use which one. Okay. Fast is like really good for almost everything. Thinking, I've just gotten so used, and again, this is a little bit spoiled and a little bit privileged of me, but when your school has the thinking version, I mean, I just leave it on all the time. I just let it think about everything I do, even if it's something really small. So you make that distinction. But again, fast is like super fast. Um, so I'm going to steal this here, steal this prompt from my notes. We're going to put this in here real quick. So, so the fast version, as you can see, it's already started creating and it's going from there. My reading experts, you could tell me if that actually looks like sixth grade or if that actually looks like third grade. But again, so that actually is going to lead me nicely into my next topic that we're going to be talking about too. But so I just wanted to make that distinction really quick there between fast and thinking. All right, so alrighty, so we've probably all heard all of these things. These are the things we want to watch out for when we use AI. These are the things that hopefully someday when all of us as teachers get comfortable talking about AI, we could also talk about these things with our students. And so they know what's happening when they are having their conversations with AI. So I already kind of explained to you a little bit about the hallucinations, but the reasons hallucinations happen is because, again, AI is pulling from this massive data set. And we in the English language have words that mean multiple things. So sometimes the context gets lost on the AI because you could be using a word that could mean one thing in one context and another thing in another context. So that's part of the reason why hallucinations happen. And I'm going to do a quick little thing here through the chat just again. So I want you to we'll put a yes, we'll do one and two. We'll stick with one and two. So one is yes, two is I have no idea or no. Okay. So one, do you remember what you had for breakfast today? You're going to see the point of this in a second. Do you remember what you had for breakfast today? If, or if you didn't have breakfast, that is still remembering that you didn't have breakfast. That counts as a yes. Okay. All righty. Do you remember what you had for breakfast what's today? Tuesday. Do you remember what you had for breakfast last Tuesday? So go ahead and put a one or a two in there if you remember what you had for breakfast last Tuesday. Little tougher, little tougher, right? Now here's the good one. Put a one or a two in the chat if you remember what you had for breakfast on this date 20 years ago. Exactly. So this is a great analogy that I use for people to try to explain hallucinations, right? So we all have a vague idea of where we were 20 years ago. We could look back at our lives and be like, oh, where was I 20 years ago? Okay. Where was I 20 years ago? Oh, God. Never mind. I won't answer that question. That'll make some people mad. 20 years ago, I was in my first semester in college at Pitt. My flag's back there. But anyway, there we go. I have someone else who's younger than me. Yes, wonderful, awesome. Thanks, Abigail, for saving me there. Um, but so I can reason and reasonably guess what I might have had for breakfast when I was a freshman in college, which was probably a breakfast hot pocket because I ate those like they were going out of style. Okay. So I'm guessing though, I am not 100% accurate in did I actually eat that for breakfast, but it's a pretty darn good guess basing on where I was 20 years ago, what I was doing, what I normally ate for breakfast. AI does the exact same thing. If it's not going to find the exact answer, it is going to find an answer that it is so confident about because of all the context that you built around it. Okay. So that's another thing we have to worry about is how confident AI sounds. It's always going to sound like it knows everything. And it's like, yep, that's exactly the answer. And you 100% got to do that. We all know that AI can totally make stuff up. So I think we all got that. The second thing that we always talk about is bias. Now, this is a little harder to detect. Okay. I will admit, I'm someone who did not recognize biases early on. And again, this is coming from a position of privilege as a white male. Okay. So I do not see, when I was using AI and generating outputs, the bias wasn't initially like in my face. I didn't notice it. But the more that I started having conversations and learning about what bias shows up, then it all started to click and make sense for me. For example, there was a really big, long period of time when image generators first came out when they were terrible. And then they got a little better, and then they got a little better. And now you can't tell if things are real or fake anymore. Okay. But image generators still struggle. If you ask an image generator, actually, I'm really curious. We'll just try it right now, real time. We're just going to do a little quick test here. I'm going to use Nano Banana, the good one. Um, Show me a teacher. So in the bias discussion, I think you're all well aware that teachers and teaching is a profession that is predominantly female. So when you asked AI to generate an image of a teacher, it was predominantly a white female. That was if you asked it 100 times, oh, there you go. Look at that. There you go. Uh, Show me another one. Okay. So part of the thing in the experiment that these people do is they would do this and they would just keep hitting regenerate and they would just keep going and see how many times and how often it generated the same thing, right? Yes, with glasses, Abigail, always. Teachers all wear glasses all the time. Did we know that? But what it was starting to do was play on all of those stereotypes and all those biases that were built in. Okay, so now I asked for another one, right? So now I kind of asked it for something different. So if I go back up here, I can't do it anymore. But if I went back up here, I could have hit regenerate. But what AI models have started to do, and now this is only the gender conversation. So you can imagine bias gets into the racial conversation as well. If you asked it to generate an image of a teacher, the amount of times that it actually generated an African American person was way less, way less than any other thing. So that's part of the thing with bias. And the reason why these AI systems are biased is because they're trained on what's on the internet. And what's on the internet is a lot of biased material. We are just now within the last I would argue, within the last 10 years, starting to come to terms with the fact of how biased things actually were in many of our systems. So we're only just now starting to kind of think about bias in what we do and what we create. So that's why bias is so inherent in these systems. And then finally, the last one, we touched on it already, data privacy. Don't put anything in there that you wouldn't want on the internet. Okay. Anything about IEP information, grade levels, name of your school, name of the kids, anything like that. Don't put that in there at all. Okay. Cool. I think I'm doing pretty good on time. I've missed a couple questions, so let me go back and make sure I ask some of them.
You mean in chat, I don't think there's anything that needs to be addressed.
Okay, right on. All right, so this is a big one. And of course, it doesn't quite fit on one screen, so we're just going to scroll down a little bit there. This is a question I get all the time from teachers, from professionals, from everybody. What do I do? What do I do about AI? Like, what can I do about AI, right? Like, my students are using it, they're doing all their assignments with it. I'm trying to get them to think, and they're just using AI to do everything. What can I do about that? So, a person that I'm connected with on LinkedIn, his name's Leon Furs. He got together with a bunch of really smart people that have like PhDs and stuff, and they created this thing called the AI assessment scale. And this AI assessment scale has been used in a lot of state guidances, and it's also been used in a lot of school policies. I believe the policy that I just looked at this past school year that Hollidaysburg came up with incorporated the AI assessment scale in it. Okay. And what the AI assessment scale is pretty straightforward. It's almost like a stoplight system where you essentially, with every assignment that you assign, you have a level of accepted AI use that goes with it. Okay. This is something that schools are going to have to build towards. I'm not expecting you as the teachers to go like, put this in tomorrow, because right now I know all the schools still have very strict policies for student use on AI. Okay. But this is something that will help us as teachers think about how do we move that conversation forward with our students. You can use this and have this conversation with students on the side, because if you know your work is being taken home and you know students are doing work at home, this is something you can propose to them and kind of put forth to them. Like, I know you're probably going to use this tool. Here's how I would like you to use it. Okay. Something along those lines. All right. So as you can see, there's the AI free. There's no AI in this assignment. You could use it to do brainstorming or outlining. Okay. You can use it as an editing and a feedback partner. And then the full one is it's doing the work for the student, and the student has to do something with that work. So the student either edits that work or evaluates that work, and that's the assignment. Okay. So there's a lot of different ways we can think about how to like kind of reframe our assignments and go from there. Another really, really simple one, and this is towards the bottom here, but another really, really simple method is that if students do use it, just have them share their chat log with you. Have them show you how they used it. Now, when you do that, what something really interesting happens, because most students go home and just type in your prompt and they say, write me a paper like a sixth grader or a seventh grader. But if you say, turn in your chat log, and all you see is you literally just asked this to write the paper with you. Why didn't you ask questions? Why didn't you ask it to add more or do like that? And it gets the students thinking on a different level. Rather than saying like, oh, I'm just going to have this do the work for me, I want to think about how I want to use this to help me do my work. And so reframing it, and by sharing the chat logs, it based on his rubric. So that was his whole system, was he graded their chats and how in depth they went in their chats. And so they weren't graded on the final product because he knew they were using AI to create the final product. They were graded on how they got to the final product with AI. So Again, this is down the road, but these are things that you can be thinking about. Having reflections done in every assignment. How did AI help you? How did it hurt you? Was it useful? Would you have rather just done the assignment on your own? You know what I mean? So reflecting. And then, of course, one of the easier ones is the version history. If they're doing the assignment in Google Docs, teachers have access to the version history. So you can see if they copy and paste large chunks of text. Brisk also has a tool that you could just see all that in real time as well, from the beginning of the document to the end. And then on our side, again, teachers have enough to do, but here's something else we can do is just change the way we assess. Okay. So rather than grading the final product of the essay, you grade the process of how they got there. Okay. You have students defend their work. So this was one of the ones I used early on. A kid would turn in a paper to me and I looked at it and I would say, what's that word mean? Do you know what that means? Um, what's the point of your paper? Like, what was the purpose of this paper? What was your argument that you made? If they can't answer those questions, I would say, well, you have to either learn what's in this paper or write me a new one. Like the whole part of this paper was I wanted to know your argument. I wanted to know your thoughts. So you have to be able to tell me your thoughts, right? I made this point earlier in a meeting that I think the ironic part of AI is that it's actually going to force more human interaction because a lot of us aren't going to trust the text interaction anymore. So we're going to want more human interaction as a result of AI. So as teachers, rather than you turning in a writing paper, I'm going to want to talk to you about it instead. And so I think that's going to be an ironic part that we're going to see about this whole AI thing is it's going to be able to do and automate a lot of stuff for us, but I actually think it's going to push people closer into more communication with each other. Um, and again, analog days, I did this. Like people are always shocked when I share that, I had a lesson where the kids never opened the computer. And they're like, "You, the AI guy." Like, "What? What are you talking about?" And it's like, "No, you got to have days where you take a break. I need days where I take a break." So I think everybody can recognize that there are some times you need to take a break. So you have analog days for things like that. Okay. And then yeah, the big thing, focus on the steps, focus on the process, move beyond the product. All right, let's see here. What do we got here? All right. So that's it here. I'm trying to think, did I miss any questions that I had in my notes? No. Oh, actually, here's a quick one because I'm just curious about this. I forgot to ask this way earlier. Um, in terms of what you are using AI for, all right, I'm going to put this in the chat here. So A is email, B is data analysis, C is differentiation, and D is content, if I could spell content creation. If you could pick A, B, C, or D, what do you think is your number one use case of AI? The thing that you are using AI the most for? Are you using it to differentiate your materials or using it to take that angry parent email that you have lots of thoughts about and have AI make it sound a lot gentler and kinder? Because that was my number one use case, was responding to emails from parents. So um, that's another great thing that's really nice about AI is you can literally just say what you want and then say, make this professional and, kind or whatever, make this sound professional. Okay, so C and D. So creating stuff and differentiating. So that's what I figured from the teacher lens here. Okay. Oh, yes, I agree with that too, Brenda. Yeah. The emails. I think, and here's the other thing, and I think this is probably a pretty sad part. I assume that every email that everyone sends me is written by AI. That's what I've just done now. I assume that every email that is written to me is just written by AI. Um, and that's what I go with. That's my default because There are some things that I do in my emails that are make it very clear that I'm writing it. I overuse exclamation points. Tanya, don't come at me, please. I'm sorry. I overuse exclamation points like big time. My wife would always critique me and say, "Why do you have to yell everything that you type in?" And I'm like, "Because I'm an excited person." So I accidentally sent something to Brenda the other day that was in all caps. And I was like, I didn't mean to shout at you. And she's like, that's your normal volume. And Tanya can also attest to that as well. That is my normal volume. Um, and so can Ricky. Is she in here? I think she's in here still. Anyway, and she had to. Yeah, okay. So, but regardless, like that's so. I just assume everything that comes from email is written by AI, and so looking at it from that lens, I've learned to kind of back off and just be like, if it's written by AI or written not by AI, you got to go with it. Um, Curious about data analysis. So let's see if I could do this really quick. I'll pull this up. I think I'm still sharing my screen, right? We can all still see my screen. Okay.
Yep.
Let's see here. Create a data table of student scores on 3 reading tests. There are 20 kids in the class. Go. So I'm going to see if this can give me a quick data table here real quick. There we go. Boom. Okay. So let's take our student data. That's another great thing about Gemini. I'm glad I showed you this. So if you ask it to create a table and stuff, you can just like export it to Sheets and it'll just like create a Google spreadsheet for you and ta-da, already built. And then you can go in here and change whatever you need.
But where
All
did the
right.
data come from?
I had it make it up. I literally just had it make it up.
Okay.
I literally said, give me a data table of student scores on 3 reading tests. There's 20. That's it. Literally just made up data.
Okay.
Yeah. But so anyway, so someone's asking about data analysis. I got to make up data. I don't just like have data laying around here, especially data that I can share with people. I don't have it just laying around.
Well,
Oh,
what
where's
are the
some?
systems that allow you to upload files? Like, look at these 3 Google Sheets and compare or whatever.
Mhm. Say that. What was your question?
Are there certain tools that allow you to upload documents most in the most streamlined manner?
What do you mean in terms of? I mean, so Gemini is also really nice because it attaches to your Google Drive. So you could just pick files out of your Google Drive. Um, and so I can take this and copy the link, and I can go into a new chat and be like, how did these students do on these tests? Which test was the best? I don't know, something random like that. We're going to try this because I don't know if this is going to be able to do this. Oh, we'll find out. We're learning all together. Now, this is obviously, you can tell I'm not putting a lot of effort into this prompt. This is a terrible prompt. So don't copy that prompt. Okay, so can't reference that. All right. So I just copied the link from the table. I didn't think it was going to let me do that. Now, I would go in and I would Google Drive and there's my data table. Here's the date. Here's the date. Here's the date. Those of you who are writing teachers, that's probably what you see very normally in your writing assignments is the misspelling. Her, here, here's the date. Here's the data. Here's the date. That's what you get there. Um, so now it's going to go through and read that spreadsheet, and it's going to answer the question that I put to it. So in terms of data analysis, I this was last year's models weren't as good at this, but so when our school did link it, you were able to anonymize the data, so it made up the kids' names like with like animals and stuff. Like you completely anonymize the data. So I would take that data and I would put it in um, to an AI system and be like, what subject or what topic or what standard do I need to spend more time on, or what standard was the most that most students struggled with, or that got under a certain score or whatever. Um, so you can analyze data if you have data like that, where it's anonymized and the kids' names aren't in there, and you just have scores and standards and things like that. Um, you can ask it like, what is and they say in those programs like Link It and whatever, they're supposed to be able to like kind of do that for you. Um, but I haven't seen that. I'm just able to look at the data. You know what I mean? What you will see in the future is more of these companies will integrate AI in a way like that, where you will be able to pull up your data and within the Linkit system. So, you'll be able to hit a button that is like analyze which standard or analyze this and blah, blah, blah. So, yes, thank you. Thank you. If you have to go, I know I'm like at the very end of my thing here. So, Tanya, I hope that kind of answers your question. But if you have like test scores, if you have like, um, quiz data or quiz responses, even again, as long as the students' names aren't on them, but quiz or Google form responses, um, you could pull all sorts of insights from a list of responses or a huge data set. Like you could pull what was the most talked about thing in my students' answers. So if you gave them a writing prompt and they had to answer a certain question like, how many students actually identified the main character is blah 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 blah. And it'll go through and it'll read all the answers and say, here, here's how many students did that, and here's this, and so things like that are where data analysis comes in. For us as teachers, it's kind of like, what did what did I teach well? What did the students struggle with overall? And most teachers are pretty good at taking a look at their data and being like, oh, we all struggled with this. You could see right away, holy crap, everybody missed number 5. Like, oh my gosh, I got to go back to number 5. You know what I mean? So we have that, but like this is for like, again, if you wanted over the courses of multiple sets of data and things like that, when you have a huge data set, AI is really, really good at parsing through all that stuff. So that's kind of the big use with data analysis. That's more on the admin side too. Admins can look at all sorts of data and develop trends and summarize findings and things like that. So that is kind of the big thing there. And I shared a couple of resources here. The links don't work from the PDF, they work from the website link, but Google for Education has micro courses available. They have micro certifications. You get little badges you can put on your LinkedIn if you're a LinkedIn freak like I am. Try to add as many badges as possible. And they're also really, really helpful. Microsoft, same thing. So Microsoft Learn does the whole same thing. And that goes also beyond AI as well. It goes into their other programs as well. And then Teach AI I put in there because Teach AI is one of my favorite resources that I share with everybody. Um, this, where is it here? Where is there it is, Teach AI. Um, this website is the website that most states in the United States and many countries and groups of countries like the EU and the world have used this website as the basis for crafting their policy and guidance for their entire countries or for their states or for whatever. This place is code.org, ISTE, Khan Academy. There's so many partners that came into building this group. They share so much information that is useful. And just one that I would love to point you towards is this one. If you are curious about AI literacy at all, building it for yourself, building it for other people, this AI literacy framework that they have is like probably one of the greatest documents that's been created so far. Okay. So, yeah, you can learn a lot from these things. And you could also just come follow me on LinkedIn. You can learn a lot there too. So,
Thanks, Matt. We are a few minutes over, but that was really,
Yeah.
really good. And I threw a note into the chat. April 21st, we're having a full day in-person session in Altoona. So you'll hear more about that, but please just know. And if you're able to pop that on your calendar as a possible thing you could do. We learn so much in these little snippets, but sometimes it sinks in when we spend the day with each other and learning everything that we're doing on that. Yeah, we weren't sure how that was going to affect happening with the testing, but we'll do more. This is just our first attempt or second or whatever it is.
Yes, yes. And that's what like now that I'm here and in this role, I plan on taking a lot more opportunities like that to do in-person trainings and trying to do these webinars. Also, hopefully in the future, getting out to come and work with your school as a whole, with groups of teachers. I have a lot of plans for teachers. So some of you, hint, hint, Tanya, hint, hint, wink, wink, might want to keep an eye out because you're on my short list that I have so far for this program that I want to set up here. So